Leader, third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, for months we were told to wait for the comprehensive housing plan that the NDP were promised that was going to be forthcoming. Now we have it, and while it's encouraging that finally we have a government that was willing to acknowledge that there's a problem, I'm not entirely clear what outcomes this government is trying to achieve with their plan. In her housing plan, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing says this. She wants to, quote, stabilize, unquote, the market. My question to the Minister is this. What does she mean by stabilizing, and what does stabilization actually look like?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
I want to, first of all, thank the member, the Leader of the Third Party, for the question, because it's a pleasure for me to stand up in this House and talk about, finally, British Columbians have a government that's paying attention to this housing crisis. For far too long, people have been neglected in this province, and I'm very proud to represent this government on the housing file. I think it's really important to recognize, Honourable Speaker, that people need to be able to find housing that is appropriate for their families. We have so many families that are living in basement suites, 3 children and parents living in substandard housing. That's unacceptable, Honourable Speaker, and those people need to be able to find the housing that they need. We also have seniors, Honourable Speaker, who are really struggling every month to make their ends meet. We have seniors who are choosing to not pay for medication because they can't afford their rent. And that, with this effort, Honourable Speaker, with the efforts of this 30-point plan, will be making a difference for seniors, will be making a difference for women fleeing violence, will be making a difference for people who are Indigenous, will be making a difference for families throughout this province.
Leader, third party on a supplemental.
Well, I must admit, Honourable Speaker, that's a fascinating definition of stabilization, if you ask me. Honourable Speaker, the budget spoke of stabilizing demand and bringing down the cost curve of housing costs. Let's be very clear what stabilizing the market actually looks like. Between 2015 and now, just 3 years, the average price of a home in Greater Vancouver increased by 60% to $1.6 million. The average price of a condo increased 70%. To $665,000. It's a similar story throughout British Columbia. Stabilizing the housing market at present levels leaves home prices distantly out of reach for the vast majority of British Columbians, especially families and young children. The government's own revenue projections back this up. They reveal that government doesn't believe their measures are actually going to have a real impact on housing prices. The government has projected property transfer tax revenues to go up and the speculation tax to come in at $200 million both next year and the year after. My question again through you, Honourable Speaker, is this. How does the minister square this circle? How can government project increased revenues from the housing market while promising to decrease demand and reduce housing costs?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So let's be really clear. We have just announced the largest investment in affordable housing in BC's history. We have brought in more than a dozen measures to address speculation in our market. That's a significant amendment. We have been saying all along that one-offs that the old government did was not how you address a significant problem like this. 30 different actions are going to be taken by this government, 30 different pieces where we're going to be working with local governments, with First Nations, with all kinds of partners who are very excited to work with the government committed to housing, and that's how we're going to be addressing the housing crisis that we have here in this province.